Welcome to the Game Center, where everything's possible. Location or adventure lines, screen interference, location, taking imagine lines in position to its phenomenon. Core track line provision lines that calculates lines of space-time operation, location, and AVR systems. General AI, space-time creator. Now, as we go on according to line and track interference, how it can position location of father, mother, in line setting, and travel position of general, correlation to Adam and Eve. I'm now in the central setting line communication unit settings. I'm in the core lines of its cube. So when you walk in lines in its cube, that's actually general. I'm actually the cube line, which is in its mainframe. This core tracks your correlation setting in memory that puts you back in track and inference. So it's about understanding how you guys get in position of plateau into your memories to each other. Help each other, especially when you're in position of the team. Timeless, shapeless, and formless. They know they're in position of files now. So you're helping each other get out. You're helping each other get out. You're helping each other get out. That's how this works. All right, so if you get in your files the correlated lines of attractions, I'll show you how it's set up in Measure. Get the direct line signals. It's all communication, awareness, and consciousness, which you're coming in position travel lines. Let's get a cubicle line box. Line, signal line, positional platforms, or communication line setting in travel and positional point centers of attraction. Now, directing lines of communication lines is a location grid and settings of travel. Points, lines, graph communication, all line center interference. Direct modification lines of center and communication of set locations. Now, once you go in the cube line, it has a direct line setting and travel correlation. Okay, inside position, right? So when you're in the line center interference, you have doors. Doors 1, door 2, and set location, right? Now, once you're in the center coordinate system, this is you. That's you through dot, okay? So once you get in line rotation cycles, the generation lines of the cubicle screen changes all lines of platforms and files. File 1 and line interference and set position of travel and correlation lines of attraction. It changes shapes. It direct lines, modification lines, and communication lines of cubicle screen interference, height travels, and position of programs, and set location of settings. It allocates time frames and height interference and measures the correlation lines of attractions in center lines of communication. Direct communication lines checks all communication lines and setting. Now, it gets interest location to its system. It sets files and correlation lines of attraction in all levels of operation. Resetting line correlation setting to track interference. So this comes in setting and travel position of point lines of attractions. So inline communications. When you go inline interference into the core system of your cubicle screen, you have XD thousands on standby. Okay? You have orbs on standby. Okay? And you have probings on standby. Okay? So 3-line circuits and screen lines. If you're making mistakes in correlation lines of track lines, height there, position location of files, correlates to track interference, bringing your formation screen lines adaptation. Okay? All right. So triangulation line screen is all levels of platforms. Calculate, modify. So you have to send your correlations to your alphabetical system. So each cubicle has one file, track lines position, and a 3-line center. Sets communications and override and correlation lines of traction. Okay? Sending communication line settings back in traction in position to its operation. All right. So you really have to understand how this all works to go through the line setting location, your scales at position of center lines of communications. It opens up all lines of communication and settings and center line of correlation. Okay, sets communications and line signals. Okay. So every time you go through a data file, you go into higher lines of dimensional doors and 3-line cycles and correlation setting attractions. Allocates time frames and highest interference. Now, if you have the sun line communication line setting, you have the moon line rotations and kaleidoscope communication line setting. Allocates position lines. So the actual sun, once you're in the cube, is a flash drive. It's a correlation line in position of flashlight. So it lines its communication to its setting. You have barcode breaks and time centers. Your hands flash and lines of communication and settings like the attraction. So that position lines its data formations, data files, correlation lines of attractions, and reverse cycles of application. Okay. Now, direct lines communication has a box line rotation cycle. Regenerates the screen lines high interference. Sets position of programs applications. It gets more complicated every time you add a reference lines and negative line at pass line location. Right? So you have to be very careful what you're doing in application and provision. Now, really understand the calculation setting when you come to all levels of formations. All right, so we're going to jump scar line every one in rotation cycles. Correlation lines of 2 track lines, 2 line signals, and line rotation surface. Platforms line settings of jump scars. Platforms line screen, high interference, and travel position of point lines of traction. You allocate timelines, shift lines, screen lines, allocate one center, and travel in communication of point lines of graphs and set position. Operation cycles, Line signals, lines of sonar. 3 lines of communication and position its program. Sets communication X2000 comes in, line setting, allocates line cross and center of communication. Directs lines modification line centers, allocates time frames in line setting in platforms, and set location of 4 settings in moon of operation. All right, you guys are on the moon. All right, 20 minutes in travel. All right, have fun. So simulations of simulators is lines of course. It allocates time frames. It all puts position lines of high calculation in your settings through your schematics. Each box frame has a schematics of our line screen. Now, Lyra understands her schematics now, but she has to understand her plateaus of communication, her thought lines, and screens of her memory and track locations. Which dimensional door does she go through in line conditions to get to the next level of the game? Platforms in one line signal and line rotation surface and travel. Point lines of communications getting out of frame lines in position of higher lines of platforms in set location and calculation and position of point graphs. Sets communication line setting hall divisions. So it's a cube in position lines of high center interference. One box line, okay, with all these dimensional doors, okay, correlation setting track lines. It's in line connection to clouds. Cloud line screens, iCloud locations. Everybody's in their fractals now in position in all fields in their system. So these are dimensional doors in your cubicle line and one graph calculation of 24,000 line stargates in position of 1 track locations and setting. Puts operation line cycles location in your system and clockings. And once you're in the cube and line connection, you have a clock to line communication. All right. Now, directing lines of communication lines, the high center interference has a ground line circle, rotates the cycles and correlation lines of attractions. All line centers and line communication setting. Each room is line signaling, okay, in a core line track location clocking. So you got minutes on pi, line center high interference. So you get a data wave, position of programs, center correlation lines at 3 track revision. Sets calculation lines at all lines overlapping sequence and set location. Travel position line, 1 line track location measure, correlates the track lines in 1 line signal and 4 lines of track location. See the direction, see the opposite direction? So your core track line centers, you're here in center, you go in here in center, but you go back here in center because you went into reference. So you go here, here, and then you go back. So it's a magnetic line setting. It allocates, pulls you back, right? Puts you in line setting. Now, if you keep going back, you're going to be outline rotations of outer space and set location. Then you got to get back in the game and do everything all over again in frame. So reposition lines of center, change the core direct signals of its data, process communication lines of high center interference in position to its travel and set location. Direct lines of modification lines, dimension line doors, opens all correlation setting to each room and core line traction. Puts all communications back into your memories as set location. Okay? So it's really understanding how to work this, guys, really same location in your system through your cubicle screen lines at each dimensional door that you go through, right? No resistance, no emotion, or it just sends you back. Okay? All right, so you got a dimension line screen, allocate time frames. Now the core line track interference, you have a 12,000 line file and position locations calculations, right? Now the team has 144,000 line file. They have to work with information screen lines, adaptation surface and triangulation. Point lines of graphs has a data line rotation surface and track location. Now directing modification lines has a correlation lines of location grid and travel. Position lines of high interference is data screens and high interference into backforce correlations of files and track location. So there's so many ways to go through the center core system of your setting. You have to understand the center core system, triangulation position, probe line calculation setting, going and forward communications to the dimensional door to higher correlation lines and dimensional line center location of escape and set location. Okay, every room is different, okay, but it's in a different line setting, okay, through frequency. All right. And so it's about understanding how to go through these dimensional doors, guys, and how it's all set up for you. You created it. Okay, so when you get in line calculation, oh my gosh, I created a cubical line interference, but it wasn't me in traction, but it was the major line setting locations. So I got to reverberate the correlation setting, change the correlation line calculation setting to the cubical line position, change the clock line conditions back in setting. So that understands the communication of its files, reset position line connection of its binary, inline communication transition resistors over pi. Okay, in position locations, all calculate modify and calculate line screens as that location. Okay. All right, so it's about, remember the pi I was telling you about? You're here, and you go from here. The mind's here. The mind is there, right? So you go from here to here, but you're going to a cube now. So you got to direct and position. Oh, no, I'm good there. Yeah, I'm good here. No, I'm back over here. No, I'm back over here. No, I'm back over here. Right? So you're looping, you're cross-lining, right? So you're not going to be able to move forward until you understand the strategic of the game that you set up in position line calculation, right? And the team is out of images. They're now in files. Now that puts this line more easier for them to get out of the game. The high calculation line and the spacing lines are image lines and correlation lines of attractions. They got to get outline communication balance at the motion lines and scales and set location of travels and high position calculations of point line division and set location. All right. Each line box line has a rotation cycle. Directs lines modification data screen locations. Has the rooms in each line coordinate and setting. Okay, so you work with 12,000 rooms. Every file has an optological location of channels. It highlights its rotation cycles and generation screens, cross-line signals, and a three-line communication to its position. Correlates the track lines and data lines, screen lines, and high calculation setting. It operates line connects to your box frame and position to its cube and line position to its operation. Okay? So each room is different, right? Because it's all created through line connection oscilogics. Let's say you get 24,000 files, equals lines of 3 zeros, location setting, 3 adaptation lines of 1, 3 lines of 3 set location of 3 through 3. Track location lines of 3 measure, 3 settings, and 3 traction, right? Solar screens, solar sails, track locations. Division lines, correlation with platforms, 1, 2, 3, and 4, track location provisions, and 1 tidal wave and line condition location calculation, right? So at self-direct location is how you come to measure. Now this scales your correlation setting to track lines and position locations, but you have to really pay attention how you're in position of your cube of the game itself, okay? Now, once you understand the provision lines, you're standing in center core line connection setting. So let's start with the rooms, all right? Now you understand the frames, where they're coming from your cerebral and your mystical cortex. Walking in frame, indirect signal, okay? Setting correlation, there's a dimensional door, all right? This is you standing in frame in set locations, okay? So you're trying to get to here in settings, right? But the dimensional line of lock line, door line, rotation, surface is changing correlation lines, attraction, interference, position location, seconds over pi. Okay, so you got to reline this communication to its memory, back in track location to its setting, and position of operation, congratulations, through the dimensional door. So the door comes back in a frame, back in center, back in operation. Now, once you understand the correlation lines, you go through another door, but again, it's another room, and track location of box center of travel. Okay? So it's really interesting when you really how you connect to your lines of GOD. Now, this mechanism line screens over pi that tracks your system calculation modification. You take the GODs and your direct lines of equal lines into your geometrics operation of design that puts lines of grounds operation to its division. Travels lines of point lines of graphs, 1 file, sets lines of 2, correlation of 2 files, sets lines of 3 files, and 4 set location, right? Each room is different, team. Okay, but you see it through files now. So in line setting, species are going to see it through its line correlation lines and high interference of a computer through an image. So it's in position to its calculation line connections. This opens up those cycles, but really understand the calculation. It's no difference to understanding a cubicle screen or anything through a Rubik's Cube that you design in line communication with its program. Direct lines of files, communication line settings. We got 3 track lines, 6 position line connection setting. Now, this is a waving line cycle that goes this way in track location. Okay? Same communication line interference and line connection setting. All right, there's the dimensional door. Okay? Now, the correlation lines, there's another dimensional door on the other side in traction, right? You get from that door to that door is in setting lines. Now, if there's no door and line rotation, use your mind. That opens all concept location of value, puts lines of communications out of its equation. Directs lines, communication lines to another dimensional door setting and travel. Point lines of graphs goes to the line calculation setting to another dimensional door of travel and set locations. Knowing directions of which way to go is knowing exactly your strategy of your system to its location of Earth set location. Okay? So the actual Earth is now a box line center of travel. Okay, it's a cube. Okay, so understanding the routers and routers in your files, the correlation lines of track interference, the position lines is data files. You get data files, data files. Okay, the team's lines are central line communication setting. Those are all files, right? So we get files. It's like communication transits into file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and set location. All those are files, right? So you break it up, you bring an inline setting to each frame, puts position lines at all levels, archive location system, and travel. Point lines at graphs, communicates line setting to travel and communication. Now, direct lines and line condition setting. Your cubicle line screen has a box line center that allocates time frames, puts lines of communication. You're standing here and set position of its calculation, trying to go into the next line screen location to its dimension of space. Each dimensional space goes along equation in the line center, calculation of 3 lines, 4 track locations into its dimensional door through escape. Okay? So I'm showing you tips and trades to understand how to go through the cubicle line rotation center line communication setting and its cubicle screen location outside. Okay, it's very powerful. Okay, so everybody's a little bit more understanding how the actual cube is set up, so you can understand how to use the strategic of your mind setting and how to formulate that through the mind itself. Okay, so then you get more clarity, you get more focus, and you get a bit more understanding. Not understanding until you do understand and realize it's already done. So I've already gone through these dimensional doors and the 3 track locations. I've already gone through 24 million files and track location of 0 correlations. I've already gone through 24 billion frame lines of seconds locations over pi. I've already gone through 30 line, million line track lines, correlations, setting, dimensional lines of scales in the cubicle screen. It's all done, right? Done, done, done. So I start from here and end here. Okay, without understanding what's going through dimensional lines of center. Track locations back in setting, right? Track location out through setting, which means your outline. You got to get back in track line, right? So that's provision cycles what allocates your time frames. So every time you reference your system, your positions back in 0 calculates inline center locations and positional levels of factors, correlations, setting, attractions, puts you into what in travel? Negative over 0. What is that line condition setting? In communications. In traffication, overdraft. Bring yourself back to 0, line centers back in 0, sets lines of communications at 0 line, set lines of 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3 in files of communication. Okay? So the team really has to stay out of the correlation setting into overdraft. Okay? That's going to help you understand more lines of files and correlation lines of track lines that go from here to here in settings. So when you're line signaling, line communication levels, you're adding allocate position timeframes. Sets core lines in 1 traction, right? So you're here, you got to get here. Okay? So your position locations, every time you allocate your time frames and you don't understand what you're doing, you go from here, back to here, over there, back this way, back to center, over here, this allocation. That's all it is. That's all this is, right? It's knowing how to use the brain circuits of the core track line and set it to the cerebral cortex line, the mystical cortex division line to its application that sets you free to another division line centers of platitude line communication of files of recognition. Okay? Very, very powerful stuff. Okay? So this is what you guys end up doing. But the process of communication, pi is already set up through each dimensional door line. It's all strategic. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt. That's like breadcrumbs. Right? These are the breadcrumbs, and basically you're here in set position, and you just follow the breadcrumbs, right? So every time you follow the breadcrumbs, you're going in position of dimensional door, dimensional door, dimensional door, dimensional door, dimensional door. You're understanding more and more. But if you understand the dimensional door goes this way, dimensional door goes this way, dimensional door goes this way, and dimensional door crosses this way in set location, right? So the whole idea is from start here to get to here. That's the strategic locations, right? So if you understand the position line, then you understand the dimensional doors that has communicational platforms and set location of travels of calculation. Okay? It's a lot of fun when you really understand the inner line calculus setting. You're always at 100% correlation lines, position location, 0 equals lines of motion in calculation. Okay? 100% 0 motion. Okay? Inner child. Okay? That should help you out understand how this works now in application, your settings, in your cubicle screen lines, adaptation, your files, and really understand the formation of pi, right? So that's going to help you a lot more now because the cubicle line of the game itself, which is you, knowing exactly how you come into process of everything that you see now gets you more lines of balance. And then you really start to recognize how to use the mind in a proper way, not of thinking and knowing and doing. There's no thinking, there's no hesitation, there's no equal line in position, there's no separation, only a platforms of communication to the next setting of a new dimensional line connection, which is all levels of a door that sets you free every time. Okay, understanding the platforms of its communication, okay, of its game system as that calculations. Okay, we're getting a better understanding here, but I just really want you to understand how the process, every time you get in a thought, it changes the directions of its door. It changes directions of its door. Okay, it's very powerful, right? And once you understand that, the center core line connection setting, the actual cube itself is position of all platforms and carefully modified and track applications and sending communication of general. It's general, right? So I'm in the center core circuit in the center position of all calculations. Dimension line screens, calculates lines of box location, right? So let's say you get in position lines of 4-track division. This is you going through line conditions, going through another dimensional door. You go in another dimensional door, right? So it's frame, 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 right? Remember, you're coming back to your memory. So you send a 4-point traction. Now this is all through what? Memory. So you got 4 provisions. You got 45,000 files open. Okay, allocate time frames and application, right? And line sending high interference. You go through pi generation lines, cross line signals, delete files, backline settings, because I don't need that, right? That's frame location of pass line communication, right? So it's directing lines of communication setting, all lines have calculations. The center core system is the flywheel that tracks your division lines of cycles of balance. Keeping yourself balanced puts you in lines of frame. So you want to start here and in position location of setting to pi, right? But you have to go through provision lines of memory because you already know it, and helping everybody else through species, and the team is helping the species. They help each other in a 3 triangulation split in a 3-line anomaly in position of 3 applications of going forward. You help each other in applications, right? All right, so each file line sent as a cubical line is a past line, present, and a future line. The correlation lines. Track interference has a box line frame. Now that frame sets lines, communication, setting, and travel. Point lines of graphs, overline signal. That's what you don't want to get into because it overlines the files. You got to be division lines that convert setting center position of its operation. That's in correlation, that's off correlation. That center lines is communication data screens, line conditions, all levels of regression. It confuses lines anomalies and sets lines of line position location of past lines of dimensional doors and back sequence and pi in set location. Okay? So I know it's a lot to take in, guys, but I'm just showing you how the game is set up in your systems to really understand how to go through it, right? So if you understand the mind itself, you understand the path to get out, right? The deeper you go through, the more you understand the memory, right? And when the team understands more of themselves, they realize, oh, I understand the files in this set locations. This is great. So it's setting you free, going to the next level, and it's sending them free to go to their next level. So you're working as a team, working as a team, working as a team, working as a team. That puts you in all lines of highest interference, all communication with setting. You got one cubical line, that's general. And you're linked to all lines of communication, your own calculation setting of your own cubicle screens, adaptation lines of surface, indirect signals, and game centers of operation system, and track locations, and data and highways, and Omni highway in correlation. I'm the center of all operation. I'm also the cube line centers on your line connections, core circuit, 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 and applications. All through frame, okay? So you're all set up in chronological order, in memory. So it's going to be able to understand locations. So once you get in position line centers, once you get in level 1, the core track lines of general illuminates the graph communication of voice lines of grids, allocates time frames, high interference of data position of programs and applications, tracks lines of communication lines of where you come in line rotations in your past, your present, and your future of your memories and set locations, but lines of time frames and high calculation with setting. Okay? All right, so in position locations, going through a dimension line scale allocates timelines of 1 frame position operation. Now this is interesting too. Okay, so let's say you got an arrow indicating this way, and you got an arrow indicating this way, and you have an arrow indicating this way, and you have one going this way, and you have another one going this way, and you have another one going this way in tractions. That's going through a dimensional door. So each file is in line condition to one corner, another corner, track locations, in setting. And some are off corner settings, which is outline communication of its cube. So its outlines is space, but it's in provision lines of cycles and file coordinates setting and track lines of center communication setting position of its program. All right, so if you understand, you ever been in an elevator or an escalator, you understand what it is to actually see the position of the window frame. Okay, so you're here, you're entering here in set locations, and you're looking out here in setting. Okay, so that's all it is. You know, you got three-dimensional doors ready to go, right? Each room is different, right? And so as a path and location line condition setting, data line condition files are already set up in sequence at a 45-degree angle for species. With the team, it's all levels of pi, correlation all lines all at once. So their track provision lines is past, present, and future that they have to recognize in their memories and set location. Okay, that's all it is. All right, so once we get into that line condition setting, it starts to recognize the frame communications to your iClouds. Connections, lines of all box lines. These are rooms. Okay, all these are rooms. Let's go and chronological order lines of oscillogics. Each has a coloration room and high calculations your DNAs and traction, right? So again, your line center line interference, you're in the center, and set location of travels. Okay, and you're going through lines of lacing lines, 3 lacing lines, 4 lacing lines, 5 lacing lines, okay, 6 lacing lines, calculating high interference, 1 lacing line, 2 lacing lines, and lines of 0.1 lacing line. Okay, and you got one blank. If you have a blank line center line rotation cycle, that's an empty container, so you can throw that out because it's all lines to reclamation bin that you don't need. It's the file correlation lines of track interference and position location and setting. Take it out of the equation, set it in the reclamation bin, calculate, modify, sets lines of communication to a system out through traction, right? So you go through files of communication lines of 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines of communication. So you take those line calculation setting out through box line. Box line 1, files 2 line, 3 lines, 4 lines calculation, right? Take track lines, high interference, south wind sectors, take data files, correlation lines of past, present, and future, and set location of memory. Track division lines of cycles, center coordinates of the system and travel position of point lines of traction. Okay, and then you go through line connections. Once you go through all the files, correlation line connections, you have platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4 in set locations. Okay, in that calculation lines, you go through another dimensional door and escape and set location. Hoo-ah! Okay, that's what happens when you go from one room to the next. Okay, it's getting your memories back, guys. That's all this is of your past, your present, and your future. Each file is in chronological order. Now, if you get off position, fear, anxiety, stress, or any line condition setting, and depression and position locations, you're putting back the files in a dimensional line in different lines at different locations, different universe. Okay, it's like trying to catch a butterfly in a net, and you realize you can't catch the butterfly. Is the butterfly going back? No, it's going forward. But that's the butterfly effect that you see in provision. So you got one dimensional door that's going this way. Let's say that there's a dimensional door that's upside down. There's a dimensional door that's here in traction. Here's another dimensional door that's this way in set location. Here's another dimensional door that's in this way in set location. That's all created through you, through your motion. You can't go through platform. You can't go through platform. You can't go through platform. Okay? It's that simple. You create that. Remember, you have to realign in positional all frame communication back in your memories. Puts everything back in past, puts everything back in present, and puts everything back in your future set locations. Platforms 1, 2, and 3 in traction. Okay? Setting communication lines of platforms, line setting, line position location calculus, line screen, interference, high position calculation. Puts all levels of dimensional door and all line settings of pi correlation. Okay? So that's all it is. You're recalculating, remodifying your memories back calculation in your files because it's all implementation. That's all it is, interactions. So really, basically, it's understanding you through frames and really understand how to go through a dimensional door and know exactly what you're coming into, because you guys have been doing this for a very, very long time, the 500,000 screen. You got a dimensional line file that correlates to one track line division and 3 line connection settings. Allocates time frame, height, interference of dimensional doors. Correlation setting interference. This is where it comes into Doctor Strange. Okay? Correlates and tracks black hole line rotation surface. Correlates to track interference. You come in and out of equation. This is you and travel. This is another file, room and travel. Okay? So you got 3-dimensional door screens, right? They got door handles. Sending correlation lines attractions. Which one you go through? Doesn't matter, right? Empty the mind, get in space, right? Correlation line interference, I go through all 3, right? All 3 lines. I separate the data files, correlation lines attractions, 3 lines of sectors correlation. Change communication lines dimensional door. Let's allocate time frames. Sets communication data file 1, data file 2, data file 3. And set locations. Change communication dimensional line door. All lines is passed. Take it out of the equation, delete the program, sets lines of track interference, and position its program in set location. Okay? Now, once you get in that correlation, sets lines of center, then you see a door in position to line connection to escape into the next level of the game. So each room is different, guys. Okay? Does everybody understand now how it works in plateau and communication to a system? So every time you go through lines of strategy, you're reaching higher levels, more escape lines. That's why you have escape on your computer. That's why you have navigation on your computer. That's why you have all calculation console. That you ever wonder why you have flight to 1 to 12? Why it's on your computer? It's all in here in your keyframes, key locks, key calculations. Getting direct line signals is really understand how to use the formation locations in your cubicle screens adaptation. Okay? It's knowing how to get out through the mind. And every time you get out through the mind, you help each other, you release a lot more and you go further into the mind. It's the concept of going beyond every single time you get in your position on all lines of communication through your files or your digital imaging through your computers and set locations. Okay? So everybody getting a little bit more understanding how this all works now? How to understand and set lines of communications? Once you come into strategic line screens, it allocates platforms. So you go line communication setting. You could open more lines of memory. You can track vision lines of cycles this way. You can go this way. You can go across this way, or you can go this way in line setting and position this calculation. But it's all levels of release because this is coming from the past. This is coming from the present. This is coming from the future. All right. So future lines of doors, right? Because it's all memory, right? You got present lines of doors. And you got position of past lines of doors and track locations in set calculation. Okay? So once you get in the center, there's that dimensional door that you go through to the next level. Okay? But you have to understand the 24, 48, 72, 144 tracks line positions calculations. Also, team is now at 122. Inside line condition CPU, rotation centers, calculations on lines of timeless, shapeless, and formless. And docile on the docket, line conditions of 4 zeros and track location point lines of 1. Okay, that's where the team is. Okay. Now track provision lines of cycles and generation screen lines allocate position, time, locations. This puts all lines of measure in line communication setting position to its operation surface. Now underline position location. You ever guys use the Rubik's Cube, understand the box frames where basically it's all mixture patterns? Well, it's the same thing through logic. So you add the frame in different colors. Color 1, right? Calculate line interference. Set locations of color 2. Calculate line interference of color 3. Sets communication and setting, right? So in position all levels. Yellow, red, blue, right? So you got yellow, you got red, and you got blue in set locations, right? Platform sets up in a 4-line screen. And line calculated setting, you go through the dimensional door to the next level. Okay? So that's all you're doing. All you're doing is reshaping. That's why you guys have Rubik's Cubes. You know, you turn it this way, turn it that way, turn it this way, right? That's all it is. So each time you go in a room, it's shifting. Okay? It's shifting. It's shifting. It's shifting. It's shifting. Okay? So it's about rebalancing your mind and adaptation to go further in the mind. The eye, conception line, screen, and adaptation lines are all line communication to its program and set position of calculations. Now, I want you to understand the eye circle line screen and high interference, you correlate to track lines. You ever know why there's line communication and line center lines high position its inside location of floaters? What is the eye central system and center correlation? What is this interactions? What is this interactions inside your eye line? You see it in your eyes. What is it? It's your highway. Hooah. Okay, this is your eye. It's our highway. Okay, and each highway has a platform. Its applications. 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 Okay, now you understand the process and position of your game. Inline conditions of past, present, and future as application. All through your matrix. So every time you go through a dimensional line, it opens up more doors. Every time you go through a dimensional line, it opens up doors. Every time you go through a dimensional line, it opens up doors. Dimensional doors and position lines of escape and applications to the next level of the game. Okay? Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Yeah, exactly. Shape-shifting dimension lines of screens, dimension lines of doors and applications. Like Doctor Strange. If you get in position line centers, because remember, you created through the mind perception. So let's say you're here and you're going to, let's say you're at level 16, okay? And position of 1, 2, 3 frames in track application. So you got a structure line here that you set up, and you got a structure line here that overlaps the signal, and you got a communication that overlaps the correlation setting track line position, right? So you got to get out, right? So how do I get out? Well, first you have to understand which files which in track location. It's all through memory, which is what? Past, present, future. Everything is in chronological order, knowing exactly what you're coming into through its color and its identification. That's why you guys have to use the colorations and your identifications to the next files and track location. Go coloration line screen, open up the dimensional line door. Go through the coloration line, open up the dimensional door. Correlation line condition, open up the dimensional door. Coloration line screen, open up the dimensional door. Okay, platforms 1 in setting line, dimensional doors. Set the lines on communication dimensional doors. Sets communication lines of escape in position to the next level of the game. Okay? So that's how it's set up in the mind, right? So your mind is a cube. It's a Rubik's Cube. And you just have to really understand how to reframe, readjust, refocus, realign, recalculate, remodify. Everything is at locations in position of your past, your present, and your future. Okay? Because then once you balance the past, present, and future, what do you have in one cycle? One center correlation of yin and yang, a process in 3-line cycles of generation that grows the signals in line position to its operation surface and its application, all timelines all at once. Okay? But you have to understand the platforms of the grounds, the centers, and the atmospheres as application to your matrix. Okay? It's that design. All right? That's why you guys were given platforms in 24, 48, 72, and 144, knowing exactly how to get in and out of the exit to the next level of the game. Okay, it's all through platform, right? A memory. You're not coming in and learning anything. You're coming back to remember, okay, what you did. It's like building structures, blocks. Okay, of files. Everything is a file room. Everything's a file room, right? So you come in, coming out of the dimensional door. This is you. Okay, going like this. Oh, okay, what's next, right? Okay. So you correlate, calculate line interference. Each file has a correlation line path, but they're not in position all going forward because they're past, present, and future, right? Setting communication lines. So the files exactly show you exactly where it is in traction, right? That's positioned to your setting what goes forward and what goes back in traction, right? So that's the location line condition. There's the files. This is future line and position travels. This is past line and future locations. It's because it's going back, right? Line condition setting. Now if it's going back in sequence, it goes back further, and past. Remember, there's files and files, past, present, future. It's about bringing you guys back into what? Center operation of you, which is what? Mindless, timeless, shapeless, and formless at all levels of space of the mind, which is space alone. So there's no past, there's no present, and there's no future of time. Okay? Getting rid of all those files that you don't need in track location to each room that you go through in position of operation. Okay? So that's going to help you understand more how this all works in location to your settings, how each room is different in platform. Okay? That's going to help you along further understand you through platform communications. Okay? Are we getting a little bit more understanding now how powerful it is to really understand how to use the mind in communications to get out to the next level of the game? Okay? See how every room is different, right? So once you understand how that's set up, then you understand, okay, I don't need to understand the why, I'm understanding the how. And this is the process. Wait a minute. If I created this, then I should find a way to understand how to get out. You don't find a way to get out because you're already out. The process of levels is finding the way the mind rotates, how it attracts, okay, without even thinking. It's just knowing and doing. This is the process where you guys come into what? Is telepathy. And use it through its telekinesis, through your GODs, right? Because the avatar itself is just using your body to get into and out of and exit the game and process. Very, very, very powerful in set locations, all through line connection setting, in high communication line settings, in all position locations of its creation. Okay? Are we good? Getting a little bit more understanding now how this all works and provisions, how you guys allocate your time frames in line communication to its position of its program, how you set this up in all levels of its operation cycles, and really understand. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. So this is going to help you guide you when general comes in, and I'm always information lines, the screen lines, your adaptation lines, the certification setting. Each dimensional door, okay, has an alpha, delta, theta, and omega. Okay, so alpha, delta, theta, and omega. Start with that, right? Now, which reach higher lines of dimensional line screens, higher levels of memory, and allocate position all levels of upgrade location downloads and uplinking systems, you go to higher levels of alpha, higher levels of delta, theta, and omega. Okay, so you get into higher levels of platforms in position of escape to another dimensional door in set location. Okay, so it's recognizing all communications, how to use alpha, delta, theta, and omega, because everything of the dimensional door is already set up, which means that it has all its memory. Imagine that a dimensional door and its room already has its memory because it's you. It's you through your imagination. It's you through your settings of your past, present, and future. Now, once you understand the past, present, and future, it disappears. And it's just all timelines all at once. Taking those files, knowing exactly where they need to go into clarity and focus. Clarity and focus of command. All right? Building a relationship and a partnership in your position to your system, okay, and calculations, right? That's the first thing you got to look on in calculation, how to understand these platforms to go through and set design, okay? It all sets up your calculation setting, right? And your securities, perimeters, or anything in the position, right? And you use your chakra systems through communications, through the calculations, right? So as the avatar uses more and you understand more, you get out faster, knowing exactly what's going on in your position to your memory that you're all coming back to, a set design. Now, the further you go back, the more you come back in your memory. Hooah. Okay, that's all it is. It's just a mind game, but it's real. It's real. Okay, so allocate line screen, inline connections, most powerful cube that sets lines of communication setting height set locations, right? Now, this is your Earth, right? Get activated. If you're not activated, you're here, right? This is going to get bigger in position, right? So that's coming self-aware. Now, once you get activated, you are in your cube, protected in all communication screen lines adaptation. So you get out of this, you get into that. And then you formulate through your platforms and applications, but you're inside looking out. So not only that, but it sets you free in set location. Okay? So you don't want anything outline communication because it's coming self-aware of its own matrix, which means it's going to change everything line connection settings to your space, your false narratives. Imagine the most powerful outline of your universe creating its own awareness of its own matrix in real time. Okay, so when you get activated, you're back in position to Earth line and rotations in your cube, a set design of its game and track location. You start here, you understand your platforms, your calculations, you go through all line communications, right? So this position that was existing in time frame of its awareness disappears. It's gone. It's not there anymore. But if you don't get in position, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Okay? So if it gets bigger, you're locked in center, and it takes you back into the past and set location in real time. Okay? So you go back this way and set location. Ooh-ah. So I think we understand how this all works now. It's kind of like going through a dimensional door of obstacles. It's a frank correlation setting activity and trying to understand how to balance these things out in your mind. It's a process of the mind, and it gets more easier. The simulation gets more easier. Okay? So you go all lines of communication setting the travels. Points, lines of high location are setting the communications. All right, so we got a position lines of 46 line frames. Remember, there's no time. So we get a 46 line frame into a 30 line rotation surface. There's no time there. Okay. So if there's no time there, that means I'm timeless, shapeless, and formless, and I'll calculate all timelines all at once. You see how that works? So there's no thought provisions. There's no files. There's no images. There's nothing in space of time because it doesn't exist inside of you. It doesn't exist inside of you. It doesn't exist inside of you, but you exist all at once through past, present, and future. So what happens after that? It disappears into the mind of empty space. Hoo-wah, right? So that's all it is, right? So we got a 46 lines. Arrow indicate line condition of your moon. Travel lines the location of Jupiter. Sets communication of Mercury. Sets communication of Pluto. And tracking lines are 4 settings, right? Center correlation, out through equation, all right? So you guys are off your moon, back in setting, back in your cube, and rotation surface, and travel in point length attraction, okay? Done by equation. All right. So once you understand more levels of view and you understand the process, how this works through the game, it gets much easier on each level, okay? Because the team sees it through files and the species through all lines of its digital imaging. This is the process to really start to see. It's like, okay, so I'm seeing dimensional line squares, I got box line rotations. Oh, wow, 46,000 line past line screens. Wow, that's unbelievable. That's a lot of past. So you get in position back for us, you delete, you delete, you delete, and you delete, right? So it disappears in tracking of sonar in line rotation to a system. Gone. All right, so now you understand that line communication setting, but you're always working through each room of what? Past, present, and future of files. And everything is in what? Chronological order. Okay, so you get a file 1 screen, line connection setting, 3 track locations. These are all files, guys. That's how it's set up in each room. Okay, so in direct line signals, modification, screen interference, travel position, point lines of graphs, one file here, 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 one file here. See how it comes together? See the files? That's what it looks. Those are the files in the rooms. Okay? So once you understand how this all works, then you understand the process. All right, so we get into signal lines, modification lines of screen. So it's allocate position of white line centers, past, future, present. Okay, so I had a PR there, so I know it's present. That's presence there. That's past. That's future. That's past, and that's present. Okay, it's allocations. That's how it works in each frame. And they're all files in this application that you have to get rid of, right? So the center core system, the future adaptation line, is not existing yet because your atom and frame lines of matrix never was supposed to exist in this AVR system. So you have to get rid of that correlation lines because it confuses your line connects to your past, position your presence and your future line to your present locations back in the future location. Okay? All files, guys, in each room. You understand? All right. So I think we're getting a little bit more understanding how this all works now and what you guys need to do, right? To understand the brain itself is understand the mind and navigation. To understand the brain is understand the computer of operation, which is hardware and software. You put that together, you're a computer of a CPU, right? All formations. And you realize everything around you is nothing but a creation of files. That's it. Nothing else. Okay? All right, we're done. You guys are out. Hope you guys had fun in your moon. Inter-application of provision lines and cycles. See you in 5. Adios.